Can you hear the microphone just out of curiosity?
I can hear
Okay, that's good. Forgot to check that with all the other issues.
you.
So thank you for joining me.
No problem. Thank you for having us.
Since we finally got the technology figured out, this is a learning process for everybody involved.
That's for sure.
Alright, first question. How did you get started in the monster truck industry?
Oh, that's a loaded question. There's so many different factors to it. I was born in 1975, ironically the same year Bigfoot was born, and I went to my first monster truck show in 1983, and didn't think much of it. I actually liked the mud racing a lot more than the monster trucks at the time. The first truck I ever saw was the Blue Thunder Camaro, and that was in 1983. And then the late 80s, the TNT series came out. Once the TNT series came out, I was just love the racing. I love the fairgrounds atmosphere. I love the racetracks. I love the whole part of it. I love the the tour atmosphere. Those guys were on the road. It seemed like they never went home, and I just really liked that part of it. And that's and I had done a little.
Question 2. How many different monster trucks have you driven?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't think I've probably driven maybe 10 or 12.
Wow. Alright, question 3. Have you ever done a show outside of the USA?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we've gone to Mexico, South America. We've been all over Canada.
Any favorite venues that you liked over the years? Any favorite buildings?
No, not so many. Well, I mean, I like the Houston Astrodome. I like history. I like a lot of U.S. history, and the Astrodome had a lot of history in it. The Pontiac Silverdome. I've done the Pontiac Silverdome too, and the Silverdome was to me the most historical building because that's where the first car crush took place, where the first paid monster truck event took place, and I like the Silverdome. Silverdome is a lot of fun. But my favorite places to race are a lot of the fairgrounds and the dirt tracks throughout the Northeast. Just kind of a grassroots style stuff that I like.
Question 4. What's your favorite thing about being a monster truck driver?
My favorite thing the favorite part it's kind of a loaded question. There's a lot of my favorite things that I do. Nowadays, my favorite thing is the fact that I get to do it with my family. I wouldn't trade that for the world. But one of my other favorite things is going from show to show, loading up, driving through the night, getting to the next show. Those are the times that really test you and drive you.
Question 5. This is the one that you wanted me to ask. What do you want to see, or where do you want to see the monster truck industry go in the future?
I started in the monster truck industry because I loved the racing. I loved legitimate racing. In the future, I think I've said this a few times. A couple of years back, and I don't like to base anything off of what Monster Jam does because I don't think a lot of Monster Jam. I think what they do is good, but it's not what the monster truck industry is. But it's not realistic. it doesn't have a shelf life. It has a very short shelf life. Um, it's not, like I said, what they do is great. What they do, they bring a great product to the market. But I just think there's so much more we could do with these trucks. And they Monster Jam themselves couple of years back, whichever World Finals it was, that Zach Garner had won the racing championship. The racing was so good at that particular World Finals that it overshadowed the freestyle. Then, if you fast forwarded a little bit further on that same year, you had a couple of different promoters that were experimenting using really long tracks, where you're doing multiple laps around speedways, which is great. And I think that
just sounds fun.
What's that?
That just sounds fun.
Well, it does. The only thing is we have to take a step back, and you got to think outside the box. And I don't think the equipment, the standard equipment that we're running now, the supercharged blown alcohol motors, a lot of the parts we're running, I don't think they could sustain doing events like that back to back. If you did 4 weeks, like let's say you did 4 weekends where you're doing multiple laps around an oval style track or something like that, I don't think it's conducive to the business side of it. So that will now drive innovation. And I think a lot of the innovation is going to be in engines coming up in the near future. A lot of guys, I would love to see the manufacturers get back into monster trucks. I'd love to see Ford, Chevrolet, and of course Ram is involved with the Hall brothers. But I'd like to see Ford and GM maybe play a small role. They don't have to, NASCAR, nothing NASCAR style, even though NASCAR is, going away the Buffalo. But the consumers out there are buying trucks, and there's so much of a market. It's just a matter of portraying us right and portraying it's kind of taking a step backwards to have that thought, but I don't see how it's going to survive any other way.
I just wish any of it would be on TV, because up here where we are, it's not on TV. There's no exposure at all unless it shows up 2 hours from where I am in Toronto. That's the only time you see it, and other than that, you have to watch YouTube and where I am, the internet is funky, like how you're having internet issues. So unless it comes to town, we don't see it. We don't get the exposure anymore.
The exposure, and that's the one thing Monster Jam does good with is exposure. They put the monster truck, they put the existence of a monster truck out there in public, which is great. It's great for the monster truck world. But one of the things that I've been amazed with recently, the tractor pullers, most of the tractor pulling teams have used social media and have actually exploded their industry. They've made themselves look like $1 million. Those guys have done so good with the podcast, which we've got guys in the monster truck world that are doing the podcast are where it's at right now. And I think that's what's going to get a lot. Everybody, we're going to have a YouTube channel. A YouTube channel's okay, but it's not as entertaining as a lot of people think it is. But the podcast and the fans, the integration of the fans that do the coverages, and we have a good friend out here, Mark Galloway. Mark's a quirky dude. We love Mark, and Mark, what he does is he comes to the shows, and a lot of times he'll set his cameras up, and you get that behind the scenes stuff with Mark, which is great. But if you can use that behind the scenes stuff and maybe refine some of the stuff we do, or maybe if you know you're behind the scenes and you know you're on camera, you can kind of build a little reality and drama into it and make that the viewer feel as though they're part of it. And like I said, I can't say enough for the tractor pullers. All the NTPA teams are doing so good with that stuff, and I really wish some of the monster truck teams would do the same, myself included. I'm not real tech savvy with a lot of things, but I just kind of like doing what I do.
Like, I grew up watching Monster Jam on Speed. So, I mean, that kind of broadcast, I miss those as well.
And a lot of people do. A lot of people miss the old school stuff. I mean, there's definitely a nostalgia aspect to it. Unfortunately, with us, our hardcore fans are generational. The 5 or 10-year-old kid that'll sit and watch a monster truck show 10 or 15 years ago is growing up with a family of their own now, and they might, they'll get their kids into it. It's hard to portray it because the fans, the hardcore fans that are the ones we love, that are just, can tell you what you had for breakfast yesterday. Those guys are important to keep the history of the stuff alive. But our history, our business changes so much that it's super hard to get a fan to stay a fan for life, because they get hooked at such a young age. And then, as with any human being, you change throughout life. Right now, that 5-year-old kid might be in a monster trucks. A couple of years from now, he might be into baseball or football or NASCAR or whatever it is nowadays. My life has just been trucks and equipment, so I don't know much else.
And my final question, if you could drive any monster truck from any era, what would it be and why?
Well, it would be one of 2 trucks. Either Bigfoot number 4 or First Blood from the early 90s. Not the one that became Wild Thing, but the one right before Wild Thing, the leaf sprung truck. There's just a nostalgia about those trucks and just such a coolness to them that, Bigfoot 4 speaks for itself. It's a legend, and there'll never be another monster truck like Bigfoot number 4.
I'm speechless. Well, thank you for doing this. Is there anything you want to ask me?
Where would you like to see monster trucks go in the future?
Honestly, I'd love more coverage, like on TV and up here in Canada, so that we actually could have a program to watch it. Because after it went from Speed Channel to Fox Sports 1, it disappeared for like 15 years, came back for 1 on NBC, and then we haven't had anything since 2017.
Yeah. Now, you're from Toronto, correct?
I'm from Muskoka, which is 2 hours north of Toronto. So Toronto would be the closest event that I would go to, unless it was an independent event. Then it would be Sudbury, which is 2 hours north of where I am.
Now, we did a lot of shows last year for Monster Trucks All Out, and I think he produces a great product, and I think he's done an amazing job at hitting a niche in a lot of these suburban Toronto areas that have these fairgrounds at them. That, I mean, he just does a great job, and the people that show up, it's like so many times in the States, you'll always be compared to a Monster Jam, to Monster Jam. And that's cool. You know what? A monster truck is a monster truck. But Monster Trucks All Out have done a great job at defining monster truck versus monster jam truck. And the people that see the monster trucks that we do are never disappointed in what they get, because it's such an up close, in your face deal. and I think they love that, and that's what I love about. I love doing those shows up in Canada. I love. We've been in Canada more this year than we've ever been, and probably more than we were in the United States this year. We did so many shows up there, from the Maritimes all the way across Ontario, right over to Toronto. This coming June, I believe it is, we're going to be back in Toronto for a huge show put on by Monster Spectacular. That's going to be exciting.
That's another one of the big tours up here. There's 3 of them. There's All Out, there's Monster Spectacular, and there's now Monster Madness, which is a new
Monster
one.
Madness, years ago, Monster Madness, I did some of their first shows before they were called Monster Madness, and we had a lot of fun. We did a lot of shows out there. We did all these little fairgrounds, and we never had a bad time.
One of the first shows I did was, we did Monster Jam at Rogers Center, and then 2 years in 07, and I think it was 2 years later we did Monster Spectacular in Sudbury. So it was big dome to the little hockey arena. Mom and Dad didn't really like the hockey arena. I enjoyed the arena more, I will admit, because I've gone to Monster Jam a few times since in the arena. I love the arena shows more than a stadium, because you're closer to the action and you get more shows for your buck.
Yeah, I can see that. There's the way it's put on nowadays. I mean, yeah, I've often wondered if I always had this kind of a fantasy where it'd be like, give me the resources somebody like Monster Jam has,
and give it to an independent tour and see what they can do.
Just give it to me one night. Let me announce it the way I want to announce it. Let me play the music I want to play. Let me bring the trucks in that I want to bring in.
And let me do the show my way.
Just give me the keys, and you tell me if your product is better than mine. And I'm pretty confident that people would
this idea.
Enjoy the product better.
I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, and it's
let the drivers run it. Let's see what happens.
Well, that would be in a perfect world. Like I said, in a perfect world, that would be the way to go. I think there's a lot more. We're barely scratching the surface of what these trucks are capable of. My biggest gripe with Monster Jam is their shelf life is, they have a shelf life. But that's not necessarily just Monster Jam's fault. That's the way the business evolved and the industry evolved over the last 40 years. The trucks evolved faster than the tracks did. The tracks probably could have evolved a little faster. Technology just grew by leaps and bounds with monster trucks. Shock technology. But I also think there's a lot to be said for coming technologies. Like I said, engines. I think the engines are. It's just going to take somebody to try it. It's going to take somebody to think outside the box and to bring a different product out. Axles. I don't necessarily know where to go with axles and suspension technology. I think we're just way off on. We're stuck in a plateau with a lot of that stuff. And I think we just got to start thinking outside the box, and it's going to get better. And I think you're going to have one guy or two guys. In the States here, you got David Tucker out of the West Coast that is just amazing with what he's got with his truck. And I've looked at some of his shocks. His shocks are incredible. And that's taking nothing away from a lot of the other guys that are building shocks like Overtime CNC. To me, shocks were always a mystery. And for those guys, when you make a phone call to like Overtime and say, hey, I need a set of shocks, and 2 days later they're sitting at your shop, it's pretty wild that they can turn out the products they're doing so fast. But again, guys are refining everything right now. They're refining this stuff, and Bill Payne's building this Clark Planetary setup, and there's so many different things, but it's still the same design. It's still a very archaic, antique style of stuff that we might need to start thinking differently.
Well, thank you for taking the time. I've learned a lot this evening.
Yeah.
Which is good. It's neat to learn more, learn some history of the industry. So it was very good.
Well, like I said, this stuff, the podcast stuff, and, don't ever just think you're a fan. If you feel if you can contribute to the advancement of monster trucks just through any part of it, it doesn't matter. It could be a display. It could be anything. There's so much that goes into these trucks where if it wasn't for people like yourself and other fans out there that followed us and put the stuff out on social media, it really does help. People like to form opinions about a lot of things, and I get it. That's going to happen, but
I created this channel because of a monster truck driver, actually.
Well, that's it, So.
As in, it was their idea. They said, if you like it so much, create a channel.
And that's it. That's what you do. And the biggest thing is keep history alive. If you like any part of the history, if you think back to your time as a kid and one truck stood out to you, keep it alive. That's keeping the dreams alive.
Yeah, I'm an old school person, so to speak. So I'm 31. I was born in 94. But I enjoy everything from the 70s and 80s.
Yep.
So I have a few Bigfoot videos on VHS. Still, VHS player doesn't really work anymore, but I have videos.
Well, that's all right. I mean, that's what we got YouTube for now. I'm sitting here watching a TNT show from Bowling Green, Ohio, in 1990. So.
Are you on the show that you were watching, or no?
No, I'm just watching it, just enjoying it. I like the old stuff. It's to me, everybody, the new age. A lot of the new age drivers will go and they'll take a big airhead and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I was up there. I was thinking about it," and I was like, "You're landing in stuff that's light years ahead of anything that some of these other guys started in," and
And you're protected by a roll cage. Think about people back then who just had seatbelts.
and that's it. It had lap belts. I started my first truck had a lap belt in it, but you just watch some of the stuff, and it's amazing the technology that has come out in these trucks. But it's amazing the guys from the old days survived the way they did. And
that would be a good tour. Everyone bring their 1980s trucks to a show and let's do a throwback night.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like my son Gage, he just bought a lifted truck. That's how we started. I started, I had a lifted F-150. It's just like this. A lot of guys, not myself, but I mean, a lot of guys would take their lifted street trucks and they grew into monster trucks. They were trucks guys drove on the street, and then they grew into monster trucks. The next thing you know, one week you see them driving down the road, and the next week you see them on TV. It's like, it's crazy.
I just thought of one last question.
Yeah.
Who was your favorite person to compete against back in the day? Like, did you have a favorite truck that you had any rivalries with, or anyone that you enjoyed participating against?
I never really had any rivalries with anybody. I enjoyed running with a lot of different guys.
That's what I was trying to say. Did you enjoy running with anybody?
I enjoyed running with guys like Robert Parker when he was driving Gravedigger.
He drove Gravedigger? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Robert drove quite a while for Gravedigger. And he always enjoyed running with him. Any of the old timers, man, I always like, and I say old timers, the guys that I looked up to. Always loved running with Kirk Dabney anytime I had the opportunity. There was a lot of there's so many guys that would teach you stuff, and you could learn a lot by watching them. Mike Vauders and I became good friends over the years, and I still watch Mike. I enjoy working with Mike. You always can learn anything from him, and he's a walking history book of knowledge. But there's I never really had any rivals in anybody. I enjoyed everybody. I've enjoyed every minute of this business that I've ever done it, and and I enjoy it a lot more now that my boys are racing, my boys are driving, and my boys are working and building, and that's what I like. We didn't have a real good year this past year. We broke a lot of stuff.
How many shows did you do this year?
What's that? I don't know. We didn't do very many shows this year, but we broke a lot of stuff. And this year, every time we broke, we learned what we broke. We learned why it broke, and we learned how to make it better. So this year coming up is going to be exciting. Preparation's the key. If something is to break, we've got it. We can fix it, or we can get through it. And that's the key. For a long time, I had good dependability with my truck. Didn't have great performance. And now you try to find that balance between performance and dependability, and that's what we're working on.
And back when you started driving, you ran what you had, right?
You ran what you had, and everything you had was in the trailer. If you didn't have it, then you hope somebody else did.
And that's the other thing about the monster truck industry is you all help each other out. If something breaks, every team is over there trying to fix it, so that everybody can get a good show out of it.
That's right.
That's the one thing I've learned watching over the years is if something broke, every crew member would run over and help fix that vehicle so that the fans got their money's worth.
That's right.
Well, thank you for doing this.
No problem.
It finally worked. The recording worked this time. Now I just have to figure out how I'm going to upload it.
All right. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you later.
Yep.